Good morning.
Hello, everybody. Sorry for being late. We now have another Hiero community meeting before that one, and Sophie just reminded me that we need to jump into the other one. Without Sophie, I would still be in a different Hiero meeting.
Yeah, those other Haro meetings are going great.
Okay, let me open the agenda for today. Let's ping the rest of the TSC and the community that this meeting starts. Okay. Well, I think we already have around 20 people here in the meeting, which is great. So let's start with the TSC meeting and welcome everybody to this meeting, which is the Technical Steering Committee meeting of the Hiero project. And like every meeting we do at Hiero, this is a public meeting. So everybody is invited to join this or any other Hiero meeting we are doing. If you are interested in that and want to see what kind of meetings happening in the Hiero project, we have a public calendar. You can find it on the Hiero webpage, in the agendas of our meetings, in our GitHub, and so on. And in this calendar, you will find all the different meetings we provide with for Hiero. As you can see, it's, I don't know, like 10, kind of 10 each week, starting from the TSC meeting where we're just in. Earlier, we had the Hiero community management meeting, which was about, hey, how to help newcomers, how to get new committers and maintainers. Later today, we have for the solo project a community call. Yesterday, we had the community call of the SDKs and so on. So as you can see, there are a lot of different calls going on. You can subscribe to the calendar by using iCal, or once you have an LFX account, you can just register to a meeting and then it will be added to your calendar automatically. And what I really like is if you missed a meeting, you can easily go to a previous one, like the TSC meeting of last week, and you will have access to a recording of that meeting on an AI generated minutes of that meeting. And since all those meetings are open and we hope to get feedback from the community and invite you all to participate, to ask questions, to join our discussions, we need some basic rules to do so, and that is why all our meetings are happened under the code of conduct of the Linux Foundation and the antitrust policy of the Linux Foundation. So please, unmute yourself, ask questions, join any discussion, but do it in a friendly manner, and then we are all good. And while I did this introduction, I've seen several other people popped up here in the meeting. Hello to all of you. And let's start with the agenda of this week. So, as in every week since the beginning of this year, we start the TSC call with a short overview of the last TSC call. And last week, we had the presentation of two HIPs. They are still here in the agenda for today because while last week we had a presentation on those HIPs, this week the idea is that the TSC votes on those HIPs. And again, thanks to Joseph and Nana, who are both here in the meeting, to give a presentation on those HIPs. Another thing happened in the last TSC call is that we positively voted on a new project coming to Hiero. In the beginning, it was called the Hiero Identity Platform, and the TSC made the suggestion to change this name so that it's, like since several of the projects that has been onboarded now could come into the identity space, we wanted a more specific name, and it's Hekra. Jessica, is it Heka? Hekra?
Heka, yeah,
Heka.
Heka
Yeah.
Identity Platform.
It's the Hieka Identity Platform, is it called now? And the transfer of all the code and so on to Hiero is currently in progress. I think those were the main topics from the last TSC call. Next to that, we gave an overview on what happened on the maintainer days in New York and discussed in general about SDK maintainer roles and if we should change some definitions in that topic. Okay, that was it about last week. Let's go to this week. And before we go to the concrete topics, as always, the question to all of you, are there any events, any news you would like to share with the community that we then maybe even could, like put it on the Hiero blog or even move it to LFDT, any interested events you take part of in the near future where, like people from Hiero can meet each other and so on. So any topics you would like to share, anybody of you? Nobody. I would like to share some information because we have a nice Hiero event coming up in near future. That one is sponsored by Hedera because there will be the Hedera Dev Day, which happens next week. And at that day, there will be, or at that event, there will be an Hiero booth. And some people from the Hiero community, I even see them here in the call, which is like Robert, Sophie, and Jessica, all three here on the call, will take care of the booth and help the community to ask questions on Hiero, help the community to maybe do their first pull request against Hiero, and so on and so on. So if you are at the Hedera Dev Day, you for sure should visit the Hiero booth. Okay, that's the news I would like to share, and with that we can come to the HIPs. Um, Let me open the hip tracker. As we can see, there are several ones that are currently defined as last call. Any is Mark here? Mark, any update you would like to give on those two?
No, so I think we need to come to a vote on HIP 1137 and 1357.
Yeah, that is what we will do next for sure.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
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 no,
that
no
is
other
that is
updates.
the idea. Yeah, yeah. The question was just, can you already say for the other two if they will come up like next week or?
Oh, those are outside of my view. Let's
Oh,
see.
okay, no
Keith?
problem, no problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not sure if we're talking about HIP 1340, 1341. I don't know if it'll be next week. It might be maybe 2 weeks. I would not expect it next week.
Okay, perfect. That's fine. Thank you, Keith. So, as I already mentioned before, last week we had the presentations of two hips, and yeah, I would like to start with 1133 first. So, let's first check if we have quorum and can do the voting on that tip. One, two, three, seven. Yeah, we have. Okay, perfect. So, are there any additional questions on HIP 1133 before we will vote on that HIP? That's great. So let's vote on HIP 1133, and I start with Michael.
Do you mean 1137?
1137, yes.
Okay, okay, make sure.
Sorry. Michael.
I vote yes.
Okay, Stoyan,
Yes.
Milan,
Yes.
Georgie,
I vote yes.
Alex,
Yes.
Richard,
Yes.
and I vote yes too. So all yes on that HIP. Congratulations. And the other HIP tier 1 block node operation rewards HIP 1357. Any questions on that HIP before we vote? Okay, so let's start the voting. Michael. Yeah, I see thumbs up. That's okay. Yes.
Yeah.
Stoyan.
Sorry, I was on mute. I did have a question, and I was
Oh,
trying to look
sorry,
into.
Alex. Yeah, okay, let's stop. So you have a question on the second
No,
HIP,
it's just the closing out from the last week's call when I had a
yeah.
question about the calculation of the block node rewards versus consensus node rewards, especially if they're coming from the same uh account. Um,
Yeah, I can answer
and
that. I had started typing it before you joined and I realized you weren't on, so I didn't press send. There's precedence here already in the logic that the consensus node uses to calculate rewards. So today, if there is a balance that is under, say, the total rewards that is necessary, what the consensus node does is it spreads it evenly across all the operators, so there's no sort of preferential treatment here. To
Yeah,
your
yeah, no, I was referring to the distinction between rewards for block nodes versus rewards for consensus nodes. And I guess what I'm hearing, if I am not misunderstanding, is that block node rewards and consensus node rewards are equally weighted or equally prioritized, meaning that if there's not enough rewards to go around, then everybody gets deprecated the same amount, block nodes and consensus nodes. Uh, it's not that there's no mechanism that would allow for the prioritization of consensus nodes to be rewarded before block node rewards are sent out. And I raise that just from the aspect of importance or priority. I mean, if a consensus node goes out because it's not getting rewarded, that probably has a bigger impact than if a block node goes out, and it's not getting rewarded.
Yeah, no, so you're right. The plan here is that there's one pool of rewards that gets paid to consensus node operators. And the tier one block node operator can be considered the same as a consensus node. I mean, let me put it another way. Tier one block nodes should be considered part of the consensus node. They're two separate server instances today. They don't have to be, kind of similar to how consensus nodes can have proxies, but you don't like reward the proxies separate from the consensus node. And the reason is actually that last statement you said isn't true, that consensus nodes are more important than those tier one block nodes. If tier one block nodes disappear, the consensus nodes stop functioning because they won't continue to create new blocks if they don't have somewhere to put those blocks.
Right. But as we spoke in the past, if a block node is unavailable for a consensus node, it will go through block node discoverability, find another block node to send it to, and there is some scalability there that we
That's
can probably
correct.
live with 4-to-1. Whereas if you lose enough consensus nodes, the network stops.
That's
So
also true. However, if all the block nodes stopped getting rewarded because they were deprioritized under consensus nodes, then they might all just turn themselves off and stop the network.
right. No, agreed. So it was just the consideration of looking at was there any inherent or capability or mechanism to address that, particularly if we have a 1-to-1 block node to consensus node ratio when we could easily survive with a, say, 4-to-1
Yeah.
ratio.
No, I don't think so. I think the simplest thing for us to do is to just, and there's also a benefit to it. So the simplest thing for us to do is to just bundle the two rewards together. We don't have to have a separate account for a different operator. We don't have to have, a separate, reward logic and so forth. All we do is just say, if you're a consensus node and you're running a block node, then we increase the amount of reward you get by some amount. And that'll
Right.
actually encourage people. In fact, the fact that you pay out of the same pool should encourage consensus node operators to want to run block nodes because, if you are going to sort of run down the amount of node rewards, which, just to be clear, should never happen on the system. Like we should. I mean, in the short term, it happens, but shouldn't. Like I think Hedera is funding that account until fees are sufficient to keep it rolling. But you're going to get a bigger slice of what's left. Let's say if you're running a block node than if you're not. So I guess it could be argued that getting them out of the same pool is actually an incentive to people to run block nodes, which is kind of what we want anyway.
Okay. Yeah, I just wanted to have that discussion just so that
Yep.
we understood kind of the pros and cons either way.
Yep. Thanks, Alex.
Sure.
Thanks. I think Michael has his hand up.
Yeah, just to confirm. So a tier one block node will at this time almost always be a council member, probably always will be a council member that's running a consensus node already. And I imagine this will be managed by that registry HIP that we just voted on as well, right?
Yeah, there'll be there's like a relationship between the address book and that registry. So in the registry, you like list the node, and in the address book, the consensus node operator claims the block node that belongs to them, basically.
Gotcha. Thanks.
And just to confirm that when we say tier 1 block node, that also indicates that that's also a full history block node.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
should be. So this is one of the little details that is worth discussing or making sure everybody's aware of, because it really drives a lot of the design. There is no known way to verify that a block node is honest. Now, fundamentally, block nodes don't have to be honest because the blocks themselves are self-contained cryptographically, have everything that they need. You can get that block from an honest person, a dishonest person, or a carrier pigeon. It doesn't make any difference. when you take that block, you can independently verify that the block is legit and real. And vice versa, you can independently verify that a block is fake. So you don't have to like inherently trust anybody. But so the only thing that a block node can do for you is they could just throw away your blocks. So they could acknowledge to the consensus node saying, "Hey, thank you for your block. You're a wonderful, I'm a great block node. I'm here to serve you," and I'll just throw this thing away. Or it could fail to forward blocks to other users, or respond with blocks when users ask for them. So user says, "Hey, give me block 100," and it goes, "Nah, but I don't have block 100," when it does. So those are the failure modes that can delay responses. Like instead of streaming it directly to you, it sort of buffers it up for a while before it sends it to you. Those are the sort of things that a block node can do to you. Now, you would like to be able to have a reward system for your block nodes where any honest block node gets rewarded. The trick is trying to figure out, how do you know that you have an honest block node? Because you could, let's say that I have 100 block nodes and I'm getting rewards for all of them. If you ask any of them for a block, they return the block. But actually, all 100 of those block nodes doesn't store a single block. All it does is go ask another block node for a block. If you ask me for one, then I'll go ask somebody else for one. And I'm getting like 100 times the rewards for returning a block that I didn't actually do any work to maintain, and I didn't actually make this better for the network. This is also true. So for the consensus nodes, the essential thing for the consensus nodes is they want to know that the blocks that they've produced have been saved by at least one honest block node in the world. Somewhere out there, that block exists. Otherwise, it'll be gone forever. So if consensus nodes were to sort of pick block nodes at random from a pool of all possible block nodes and say, "I'm going to send my blocks to that block node," it's possible that all the consensus nodes will select dishonest block nodes. Yeah, because block nodes are cheap to set up. You can do a Sybil attack, basically, set up 1 million block nodes, and then all of a sudden, consensus nodes are submitting them. And those dishonest block nodes are pretending that they're saving those blocks that were given, but they actually throw them away. Or maybe they just have one person holding on to it for as long as they run the attack. And then when the attack is over, that one person throws them away. Right? There's ways for them to just like chuck these things without passing them on to anybody else. And the consensus nodes would just be happily creating new blocks and handing it off. And then the consensus nodes, it turns out that our blockchain history is lost. That could happen if you just pick at random. Now, we could try to prevent that by requiring every block node to bond. So if we did that, then every block node that comes up has to pay, $10,000 to be a block node or something and get listed in the registry. Then the consensus nodes could pick at random, and then they could start sending blocks to those. Okay, that's great. We've got the bonding part. So at least it's difficult to set up 1 million of these. So the probability that you'll get, all 39 nodes will pick dishonest block nodes is probably not that high. But, it's still there. It just depends on the ratio of honest to dishonest block nodes in the registry. And if there were only, say, a dozen honest block nodes, then an attacker only probably needs a couple hundred of these, and they'd be able to operate the attack. Still fairly expensive attack to pull off if your bond is high enough, so it might be okay. But you're sort of depending on that bond to save you, because we don't have any method for slashing. There is no way for us to deterministically know whether a block node is a good guy or a bad guy. There's just no way to know deterministically. So at least for now, the strategy, so rather than trying to hold up this HIP until we have a really great strategy worked out for dealing with this attack model, the thought was every consensus node needs to select block nodes that it trusts. And so there's an inherent trust relationship between the tier 1 block node and the consensus node. And that is the only thing that makes a tier 1 block node a tier 1 block node. So there is a trust that all those tier 1 block nodes are going to be storing all of the history forever. Well, we can't enforce it, but that's the assumption. Now, since the tier 1, since the consensus nodes are all operated today by council members, and therefore all tier 1 block nodes will be ones that are operated by council members, yeah, we'll say that they're all full history. So that gives us that level of safety and redundancy. one day when council members are not the only ones operating consensus nodes, then there's it'll still be the case that we will require whoever is a consensus node has to select a set of block nodes that they trust. And that works out because our trust model on the network is always that there are less than 1/3 dishonest nodes, or there's more than 2/3 honest nodes. So even in a future where arbitrary nodes are being used as consensus nodes, it would be more than 2/3 have to be honest. And if they have picked block nodes that they explicitly trust, not sort of algorithmically picked up, then it's still safe. And part of that trust is the assumption that the ones that they're trusting are saving all of the block data. Maybe one day in the future we'll have another solution, or maybe we'll just say if you want your block node to be a tier 1 block node, you have to bond an enormous amount of money just to make it really difficult to get Sybil attacks. And then and then we just go ahead and do a deterministic selection, or deterministic random selection. Maybe that will work out. But anyway, that's sort of the core problem space. So the assumption that we have here is consensus nodes select block nodes that they trust, and consensus nodes that host their own block node get a greater reward. And then all other block nodes that are not a council node run, not council node, sorry. Both of them have CN in their acronym, and I see CN in my head, and then I have to map it back to the words. Every block node operated not by a consensus node operator is not entitled to any type of reward. That was kind of the model that we were using.
Yeah, no, great explanation, Richard. I think much appreciated. And then, like you said, this is all evolutionary. We're going to continue looking at ways to strengthen the security model around this. But clearly we need to have block nodes implemented, and definitely want to move forward so that there's the appropriate incentives to make that happen. All right, well, I guess back to the voting then.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, so thanks, Richard, for that description. Any other questions on that tip, or can we go to the voting? No other questions. Great. Okay, so let's vote on it. And I start with Michael.
I vote yes, and thank you, Richard, for the super helpful context. That was really great.
Megan.
Yes.
Georgie.
Yes.
Alex.
Yes.
Richard.
Yes.
Stoyan.
Yes.
And I vote yes too. Great. HIP approved. Thank you all. So before we come to the next point, which is the Hiero project goals, we had some comments in the chat that have not been related to any of those two HIPs. So one question was regarding the Heka project, so the identity project, the new one, and where somebody can find more information on that. So the information are, first of all, what you can do is if you go to the public calendar and go to the TSC meeting 2 weeks ago, there is a longer presentation by the people who created that project to the TSC. So it was presented 2 weeks ago to the TSC, and you will find it in the recording. And next to that, we have an issue for the project proposal. So whenever a new project comes to Hiero, a project proposal for that is created within the TSC repository. And this is already closed since 2 days because Jessica already created the repository. So here we have the project proposal for the Heka identity platform which gives an overview about what is the scope of the project, what is the goals, and who's working on that project and so on. Happy to share that here in the chat. So hope that helps. And here you have like links to the supporters and so on. And those are the best people to ask any follow-up questions. So the other questions, there were two questions from Sophie. So the first question is there a HIP implementation in Hiero Tracker? And second question is, can HIP questions be tagged in a separate HIP discussion meeting? So let's start with the first one. And to be fair, Sophie, I do not understand for 100% what you mean with if there's a HIP implementation in Hiero Tracker. Can you maybe
Sure.
say
I
what you mean
will
with that?
I will try. I think I saw somebody demonstrating a HIP like approval or in draft status. I think that's maybe for the TSC. But is there a tracker that observes if the HIPs are being implemented in Hiero and in which repositories have they been coded and what the progress is for that? Do we have any observability?
So your question is, we have a HIP and we voted on it, and now you would like to see what is the state of that HIP, right? That is your question. Like, is it implemented in all SDKs or is it implemented in consensus node? That is your question, right?
Yes, one of the things that I have been advocating for in the Python SDK is a little bit more of HIP support. And an issue is we don't really have the visibility. I've been saying that we are struggling to implement the HIPs, but we don't have a way of showing that.
So, Angelina, do you hands up? Yeah.
So I went ahead. I think I know what Sophie's talking about. This is something that I have been working on. I was a little hesitant to share it with the TSC just because it is not at the status that I would like it to be shared. This is it, however. So what it is basically it's an overview. This is not all comprehensive HIPs. I'm still in the process of gathering them across SDKs. Basically, what this does is it outlines where are the SDKs at in terms of implementing each HIP. So for example, I believe 1261, yep, that's the first one. So in the Python SDK, we have it as an in-progress issue where the issue is created, somebody is assigned to it, it is being worked on. As of this moment, they just don't have any new info for us. Same again with C++. It's in progress. There's an issue made. It's just not something that has new updates to it. The Java SDK, they have implemented this HIP. That is fully implemented. It is tested. And they know that it works across their system. And then same goes for the additional HIPs below those in progress banners for Java. So Java is kind of the baseline that I have been using to kind of go over each SDK and figure out what point are they in a particular HIP, whether it's 1261, 1340, 1195, what have you, and then try to gauge for the additional SDKs, okay, where are they at with this same HIP? And then for, I think towards the end of it, I believe I did add Swift SDK. Yes, I did. So Swift SDK, they are in the process of a to-do for HIP 11, or I'm sorry, 1340. So the Swift SDK is missing those additional fields just because I did not get the time to go in and figure out where they are at in the process for the additional HIPs that you see there. However, this list is open to change. It is subject to change at any moment. There are certain fields, certain things that we are working out. Rob and I have been working a little bit on this. One of the things that we are debating is how do we want to handle the assignees section. So if you see here, you have Gustav, Emilyn, Gustav again, and Patrice. I hope I said that correctly. But they are not necessarily working on implementing that HIP for every single SDK that you're seeing here. That would essentially be a lot for one person. So that is one of the kind of quirks or kinks that we are working out, in the sense of how do we want to handle the assignees? Do we want to have an assignee after each SDK heading, or do we want to remove it altogether? So in that respect, it is subject to change. However, this just kind of gives a brief overview of where are they at in the process. Is anybody working on these issues? Has an issue been created? If not, let's go ahead and create that issue. If the HIP is still pending, in the sense that the TSC is still voting on the HIP, we want to make a note that, hey, this is still pending TSC approval. Once a vote has been reached and a consensus has been made, at that point, we will go ahead and mark this as a to-do, where that label signifies, okay, an issue needs to be created for the HIP. We need to include all references and documentation to complete the issue effectively, and then so on and so forth. We also added the ability to kind of link issues to where the HIP is at in the process. So for, I believe, 1195, yep, that last one that you see, that second to last one you see on the bottom, it does link a few additional issues, where they are sub issues that kind of pertain to what else or what was involved for the implementation of that HIP. Yep, that's the little blue bar that you see.
Yeah, yeah.
So this is just, again, it's just kind of a brief overview. This list will expand. So eventually we will have, my goal would be to have a good majority of the HIPs. I know there are tons, so I won't say all just yet. But I would like to have the HIPs that are currently in the SDK Collaboration Hub, as I know those are the most relevant ones. And then I would like to go back a little bit, or at least as far as I can, to try to add more HIPs to this list and determine and outline where are the SDKs at, what needs to be done, are they completed, and so forth. And then eventually, thinking very further out in the future, I'd like to be able to open this up to community, where we have community members wanting to work on HIPs, wanting to implement them into their SDKs that they're working on. And just try to increase community engagement, trying to increase HIP knowledge throughout the community. Some of our goals from community members is that they would like to see more blockchain DLT related concepts, topics, things like that. So this was kind of my way of getting multiple birds with one stone, in the sense where you have community engagement, in the sense people are going to want to contribute this again way out in the future, but in the here and now, we have where the SDK is at, what do they still need to implement, how many more are there remaining in the SDK Collaboration Hub that the SDKs still need to implement, and so on and so forth. But just a brief visual, there will be more HIPs added, but so far, this is what I am more or less working with, but I am happy to hear everyone's thoughts, opinions, any comments, suggestions, or questions that you may have regarding this board. If you're working on an SDK and you don't see it here, apologies. Did not have time to get all of the SDKs, but I will be getting them all for sure.
That is great.
Thank you.
My first idea is Rob and Keith. Maybe we should discuss if we can take that for the SDK meetings, like as a base to always check what is the state of the HIPs. What do you think about that? Moving that really to, oh, I see thumbs up. Yeah. I think that is really really great, and we should move that forward and use that in the SDK meetings to have a very good overview on what is the state on often HIP in all the different SDKs. That is very cool, Angelina. I had no idea. Rob?
Yeah, real quick. Yeah, this definitely is a good tracker for SDKs. I guess kind of relating back to what Sophie was saying, though, I think Sophie was looking for something in general more than just SDKs. I think she was looking for you know, consensus node, mirror node implementations as well. Is that right, Sophie?
Yeah, just so that we can have a feedback loop of how is the community adopting the HIPs.
Yeah. Maybe we take this, start with that in the SDKs, see what we learn, what makes sense, and if you have a very good overview on all SDKs, we can, like move it to the next level. I assume that would make sense here. But yeah, starting with the SDKs, I think that is great. So, Sophie, does that first of all answer your questions?
Maybe is this published? Is this because I think I saw something else that was Hiero Ledger / projects / hip tracking.
So if it's not published, I would say that we publish it, right? So that in the yeah, I can at least open it under exactly this link.
Hendrik, I think it's I don't know if this is, Sophie, I don't know if this is what you're referring to. It's
Yeah.
that link that you share that has a white background. You share it when we're voting on the TSC. I think I showed you the image of it. You shared the link with me the other day, but I can't find the link. It's the one that tells you where the hips are at and like the approval process if it needs to be voted on or something like that. I just remember it being
The hips
white.
tracker.
Yes.
I think it's like that second link on tabbed link, Hendrik, hip tracker.
There we
I
go.
get
Yeah,
four
that one.
errors.
Yeah.
Maybe
So my
Yes.
suggestion,
This is it.
so Angelina, Sophie, so my suggestion would be we move that topic to the SDK meeting. Make sure in the SDK meeting that everybody has access to the board, and you take that as a base and move it forward. And here in the TSC meeting today, now move to the next topic. And once we have everything set it up in the SDK, we will come back to the TSC and present it. What do you think about that?
Can we list my second question as an agenda for another time?
Oh, what was your second question?
If
Oh,
someone
yeah. Sorry, I forget. Yeah, you are right. Sorry, I totally forget. So, can HIP questions be tackled in a separate HIP discussion meeting? So, I assume your question is you, as a non-TSC member, would like to have more time to discuss on HIPs and understand HIPs? Is it that, or what
Yeah.
is the background of that question?
And I would also like in the TSC to have the opportunity to discuss more community topics. But the TSC as a percentage is most 90% of the time is discussing 1 or 2 hips.
Yeah. So I would say we need to discuss that with some of the key players, right? I mean, we have Michael Gaba here, we have Marky. So let's do it like that. Discuss if the people have the resources to, create another community meeting and bring the right people together to discuss the hits, because it's not that's my assumption, Mark or Michael Gaba can answer any question on any hip. That's why, for example, last week we had Joseph and Nana here as, like technical experts on the individual hips. And we can think about how we can move that topic, maybe the general discussion and QA, out of this meeting to have more time for other topics. But on the other hand, that would mean that the TSC members need to attend those other meetings, right? So it's a little bit bigger discussion when thinking currently loud on what does it mean. What we should do is, are you fine, Sophie, with having that on the next TSC agenda? Because then everybody can think about it, and I will put a topic on the next TSC agenda about, like move HIP Q&A and presentation out of the TSC meeting. Something, would that make sense for you? And then we can
I
discuss
think we
that.
should discuss it in more detail, certainly. Next week I'm at a conference. I'm not sure if I'll be able
You're
to.
right. So we put it in 2 weeks. Let me just do some notes. Okay, I will put it on the agenda. Great. So the next topic we have is from Jessica. Or I mean, is it Jessica or Diane? I don't know. Both are here in the meeting. I don't know who wants to present. You, Jessica?
Yes, please. Can I
Yeah.
share for a bit?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Okay, so recently we opened this discussion under the TSC repo, and this discussion talks about the 2026 project goals, and we also added a little bit of links here that can lead you to the document where the goals are described. These goals were part of the goals were taken as a follow-up from the 2025 project goals and enhanced them. I also brought this up with the LFDT management as well as few others from the Hiero project management. So between all of us, we developed these goals that we're promoting with the maintainers, and now we're bringing for the first time to the TSC. The idea is to have this document open for collaboration and discussion. It's going to lead you to this document. So if you don't have access to it, let me know, but everybody should have commenter access. So feel free to go through them and comment on what we're proposing for 2026 so far. So I'm gonna just go through them very, very quick because they're a little bit long and they're a little bit in detail of what do we mean. But I just wanted to encourage review and communication about what you guys think about these goals, especially the TSC. So the first goal is related to project participation and engagement. So this should be no news to anybody. We want to continue to encourage diversity of the project, as well as maintainer retention and bring in new maintainers into the project. So we're trying to enhance the community participation as well as communication openness. So I know that we have in the past struggled with a little bit of communication, having too many communication channels, and trying to encourage open discussions into the public channels as well as in primary channel, which should be GitHub discussions, GitHub PRs, GitHub issues. So definitely we want to encourage participation in the openness, and yep, more project promotion as well. So it falls into this category. The second goal that we're proposing is regarding security and supply chain transparency. So as you also during the graduation process, we're tracking the OpenSSF scorecards. So we're trying to work a little bit more on making them a little bit higher with the previous scores for last year, and trying to also promote CI/CD hardening, as well as continue our work with the namespace hygiene, and few other things that fall into this category. For example, I've been working with few of the team members about the NPM upgrade, for example. I put it here because it's still something that is in the works, but upgrades of this sort will fall into this category, making sure that our code stays secure and stays consistent with all the security guidelines. So definitely we have this goal here. The other one is promoting core component and sub-project roadmaps. So I know that we have similar to how we were saying earlier, like, oh, we are not we don't have much visibility on where implementation for HIPs are going through it. So things like that, as well as overall project roadmap and release awareness. So we want to make sure that all this information is easy to find, that is public, and we're also encouraging teams to help us have a better visibility of their project roadmap overall. So definitely we want to promote the releases, and we want to make sure that other projects stay in the news for what's coming into the project. So this will also promote more project cross collaboration, since we're going to have a little bit more visibility to what's coming in. This one is related to specification stewardship and reference implementation. So we want to continue strengthening consistent and transparent practices for publishing standards. And many of these include continuing our maintenance of best practices. So many of these are already in the process. We're already implementing those, but we want to remind people that we need to continue this development, as well as TSC review and proper documentation, proper application, and also the process maintenance. So we want to continue helping the teams continue the development of proper specifications. Number 5, there are 8, just so you know. I'm trying to go as fast as I can, but at the same time, I want to welcome any comments. And the number 5 goal is regarding training. So we want to open a little bit more of training opportunities, as well as all the work that you guys have been seeing with good first issues, and encouraging new collaborators into participating into the project. So we want to enhance the engagement with the new collaborators, as well as provide proper training materials. So some of these initiatives are already in the works, but I just wanted to make sure that we know that this is definitely one of the 2026 goals for the regarding training. This one is regarding, number 6 is regarding ecosystem adoption and integration. So I know that a few of us have been involved in marketing discussions regarding how the project can stay relevant in the open through case studies. And as well as, I know that we have a very good adopters tracking, but we want to enhance that. But definitely we want to continue working with the marketing team, especially the LFDT marketing, so that we're able to work in open case studies that will help us continue promoting the project and getting us into the radar for other projects to consider. And number 6 and number 8 are, in my opinion, a little bit related. So number 7 is innovation and future readiness, and as well as number 8, cross-project collaboration. So I believe these 3 fall in, they kind of correlate each other. Number 7 is regarding continue to stay relevant with the new research and prototypes and cross-project collaborations. So definitely we want to be able to enhance that. And I know that we've been trying in the past to find opportunities for growth in other communities. Like, for example, we were looking into collaborating with the Identus project, and we continue to try to look for opportunities for better collaboration with the BESU project. So definitely we want to make sure that we continue enhancing those channels and re-engaging with some of the other communities that we could benefit. Each of the communities can benefit through open collaboration. And yeah, these are the goals that we are proposing for 2026. I know that they might seem a little bit wordy, but as you might be aware, many of these goals are already in progress or should be already in progress. So definitely we have a lot of initiatives that are surrounding these goals. So definitely I want to be able to hear your opinions. If you want to communicate with the rest of the community regarding these goals, feel free to comment in this discussion. So we have this discussion open, and we definitely want to hear your opinion. And if anything feels off or doesn't make sense, or anything that you would like to add that could fall into any of these categories for us to help tracking for the project, definitely we welcome that. And with that, I want to see if there's any immediate questions. Yeah, Lindsay.
Okay, my name is Lindsay. I work on the AI agent studio at Hashgraph. And we're actually working on a couple of those future goals where you're talking about having verifiable credentials for AI agents and some of the X402 stuff. So if you could share the link to that discussion in GitHub, and I'm also happy to kind of do a quick overview with some of the things that we are doing and how we might be able to integrate that as Hero standards.
Yeah, thank you, Lindsay. Yeah, I posted the discussion in the chat, so feel free to provide your opinion. And yeah, looking forward to hearing from you.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody. Back to you, Hendrik.
Okay, thank you. So we have 3 minutes left. I think we will not get to any of the follow-up topics in that time. So with that, the question, I have the hit topic from Sophie. Any other topics you would like to see next week or in 2 weeks on the TSC agenda?
Well, I guess we're gonna have Hedera Dev Day next week, and I'm sure a lot of the TSC members won't be able to
Yeah.
join for that call.
That's what I said, like next week or in 2 weeks. So yeah, I think next week we won't have that much on the agenda. Actually, should we maybe cancel the meeting next week then?
I think that would be okay, but I can't speak for
Yeah.
everyone else.
So let's do something like Milan, Stoyan, Richard. Do you please thumbs up if you are pro canceling the meeting next week? I will be flexible because I'm not going to Dev Day. Okay,
I
no
will be-
thumbs up, so we will keep it. Oh, sorry.
I will be at Dev Day next week, so I may not be able to attend the TSC call.
Okay, I mean, let's keep it. Maybe the agenda will be short. It will be more about any other businesses, but maybe then people take the time, ask some questions, things like that. So I will be here. And if somebody shows up, I'm happy to discuss any topics, answer questions, and so on. And for everybody else, have a great week in Denver with Hedera Dev Day, maybe East Denver if you attended, and see you in 2 weeks then. Okay, thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye, thanks.